What is the nature of divinity? What is the force made manifest? The celestials were ancient beings deeply intertwined with the force, an energy field present in all things, whose essence lay beyond mortal comprehension. These powerful entities held dominion over the force and took physical forms known as the Ones, a triad of wielders comprised of the Father, the Daughter, and the Son.
You are listening to the Star Lords Podcast.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve herder?
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Origins.
The Celestials are remembered only through the remnants of their cosmic constructions, testaments to a culture so advanced and ancient that their identity and purpose remain obscured by time. These powerful beings, regarded as one of the earliest and most formidable civilizations, left behind awe-inspiring structures that still baffle scholars. Legends and artifacts suggest that the Celestials were not a single species, but perhaps a union of formless entities who had intertwined with the Force itself aeons ago, becoming something beyond the mortal mind's grasp. Their presence shaped the galaxy in ways barely understood. Among those fascinated by their works was Dr. Innsmouth Bowen, a specialist from the pre-Republic era. He uncovered serpentine motifs woven throughout the art of ancient civilizations believed to have encountered the Celestials, from Coruscant's Ophidian grotesques to similar designs on different worlds like Callus Tertius and Shatun. Some speculated that the Celestials were intermediaries of the Force, guiding the galaxy's fate from beyond the veil of time. Stories from Thurut, the oldest Killik hive, describe a vision of the Celestials' origins, a family of 3 called the Ones, rising from a geyser on a lush tropical world over 1 million years before the Clone Wars. Yet the hive's collective memory blends myth with reality, and its truth is fluid, less fact than a shared experience of the universe's oldest tales. By 100,000 BBY, the Celestials' influence had stretched across the stars, bringing them into contact with advanced species like the Gree, Qua, Colomai, Sharu, Killiks, humans, and Tong. Not all were eager to encounter these alien architects. The Colomai withdrew, and the Sharu, in a desperate attempt to hide, dismantled their civilizations, burying their cities under immense pyramids and diminishing their intellects to avoid celestial attention. As they expanded, the Celestials conscripted races to build grand projects. The Killiks of Alderaan became laborers, and the Gree, Qua, and Rakata served alongside them. Together, they forged technologies that defied comprehension, crafting star systems and manipulating hyperspace itself. In their mysterious legacy lies the evidence of their unparalleled might, echoes of a civilization that shaped the very fabric of the galaxy, yet remains forever shrouded in the mists of time.
Cosmic engineering. The Celestials' reach extended into the core of the galaxy, leaving marvels of cosmic architecture scattered across sites like Corellia, Kessel, and the Eastern Galactic Disk. Among their crowning achievements was the assembly of the Corellian system, a feat that defied conventional astrophysics. The chemical makeup of the Corellian planets did not align with any known model of natural formation, and their orbits, now elliptical, appeared to have once been set in near-perfect circles, a sign, experts believed, of intentional engineering. By 1 BBY, 17 other star systems with similar traits had been identified, all pointing to the same conclusion. These systems were deliberately crafted, drawn together from pre-existing planets by technology like Centerpoint Station and the mysterious cosmic turbine. Legends credit the Celestials, or the Architects, with more than planetary engineering. They were thought to have seeded the core worlds with life, particularly humans, Solonians, and Draal. While Draal and Solonians are generally regarded as native to their worlds, some believe that humans may have been transplanted to Corellia by celestial design, though others argue that the Rakatan Empire may have played a role in this ancient migration. The Celestials' architectural prowess reached its zenith in structures like Centerport Station, called Kolaralak by the Killiks, who likely helped build it. Killik slaves, scattered across celestial projects, also toiled on Sinkhole Station, where they employed their own methods to construct a pressure seal adapted by the station's design. Kessel, too, bore traces of celestial handiwork, containing underground machinery watched over by enigmatic beings called the Bogies that extended across the planet's surface, likely forming part of a vast sensory network. This machinery functioned as a celestial observatory, tracking gravity wells throughout the galaxy, perhaps a way for the Celestials to monitor or even shape galactic events. Pre-Republic scholars theorize that the Celestials built a circumferential hyperspace barrier to defend against extragalactic interference. This barrier, spanning the galaxy's western reaches, separated known space from the unknown regions, leaving countless hyperspace anomalies in its wake. Some speculate that this barrier was created to contain the ancient creature Ngal Ngal, which claimed to have witnessed Celestials' golden age. Others argue it was measured to isolate the Rakata, preventing them from spreading their influence unimpeded. The scope of the Celestials' accomplishments led Dr. Innsmouth Bowen to suggest that the universe itself might be a construct of their design. The cosmic structures of hyperspace barriers to engineered star systems, the Celestials left behind an incomprehensible legacy, leading some to wonder if the galaxy itself is a mere fragment of their vision, left to echo in the patterns they left behind. Ancients.
Around 35,000 BBY, the era of celestial dominion faced an abrupt and violent end when the Rakata, once enslaved under the Celestials' rule, staged a brutal revolt. Stealing advanced technology from the Qua, another servant race under the Celestials, the Rakata broke through the galaxy-wide barriers their masters had erected and launched a war of annihilation. The Gree Enclave, who called the Celestials the Ancient Masters, recorded the devastation left in the Rakata's wake, referring to them as, quote, soul hunters, who unleashed curses that stripped entire worlds of life. Known as the Grey Swallowing and the Hollowers of Beings, the Rakata became infamous as faceless mouths and eaters of worlds. With each invasion, they pushed further into celestial strongholds, seemingly intent on erasing their creators. Some ancient records suggest that the hyperspace turbulence throughout the unknown regions may have been a final defense the Celestials raised against the Rakata onslaught, a barrier meant to isolate themselves and their loyal followers from the escalating violence. But if the Celestials hoped to withstand the Rakatan onslaught, behind a shield of hyperspace anomalies, their efforts ultimately failed, or led to even more devastating consequences. In 44 ABY, knowledge from the Thurhert Hive hinted at an even darker shadow on the Celestials' legacy, the rise of Abeloth, the bringer of chaos. The Killiks, who once served the Celestials, whispered of Abeloth as a being who emerged to claim dominion over the Force itself, usurping what the Celestials had long controlled. To contain Abeloth's power, the son and daughter rallied the Killiks to help construct a formidable prison, the Maw Cluster of black holes. Using Centerpoint Station, the Killiks harnessed the Force to move black holes into place, forming a cosmic cage for Abeloth. For a time, the son and daughter merged with the Killik hive mind, granting the hive their knowledge and formidable power in the Force, only to withdraw after the Maw's completion, stripping the hive of the powers they once shared. By 30,000 BBY, the Celestials had vanished, leaving the Rakatan Infinite Empire to dominate the galaxy. The Killiks too vanished, driven out beyond the unknown regions, a move some believed orchestrated by the Celestials themselves. Legends from the Killiks' collective memory tell of the Celestials' anger after the Killiks consumed their own homeworld, perhaps in some tragic overreach, and attempted to claim another. The ancient creature Mangul Mangul claimed to have witnessed this departure, watching as the Celestials withdrew abruptly from the galaxy. Their disappearance, like their existence, is an enduring mystery. With only scattered cryptic artifacts to mark their passage, the Celestials left behind a galaxy forever altered by their influence, a legacy of both magnificent and unknowable echoing across the cosmos. The ultimate fate of the Celestials remains an enigma, their disappearance shrouded in a speculation and myth. Some believe they fell in battle against the Rakata, perhaps trapped within the very barriers they constructed to protect themselves. Others, like Dr. Inzmont Bowen, speculated that the Celestials may have transcended the galaxy, or even the universe itself, withdrawing entirely from this dimension. The Sith Lord Darth Plagueis pondered a final possibility, that the Celestials merged with the Force, seeking to influence its path eternally from within.
The Ones.
Though the Celestials themselves had disappeared by 30,000 BBY, a remnant of their power endured within a mysterious family of Force wielders known as the Ones. This triad, comprised of the Father, the Son, and the Daughter, existed in the otherworldly realm of Mortis, a place between dimensions where the balance of the Force was preserved. Long before they took refuge in Mortis, they had exiled the chaotic dark side entity, Abeloth. In Mortis, the Ones took on cosmic roles, the Son embodying the dark side, the Daughter embodying the light, and the Father, who maintained a balance between them. In the beginning, the family lived harmoniously near the geyser from which they emerged, but tensions rose when the father forbade his children from using the mystical font of power, or pool of knowledge. Eventually, the son defied this, drinking from the font and drawing dark side power, while the daughter bathed in the pool, gaining mastery over the light side. Empowered, the siblings claimed separate parts of the jungle, their conflict intensifying as the father struggled to restore balance between them.
The Force. The Thrut Killiks believed that the Ones were not merely avatars of the Force, but direct manifestations of the Celestials themselves. This connection reinforced the deep mystery and reverence surrounding them, casting the Ones as living symbols of the Celestials' will and purpose. Even within the galaxy's diverse spiritual beliefs, the influence of the Ones reached far. Among the Night Sisters, the Son and Daughter were worshipped as the twin deities, powerful figures whose mythic status endured beyond Mortis and the conflict of the Clone Wars. The Father, an ancient being and the overseer of his powerful children, knew his time was running short. As his strength waned, he realized that someone would need to take his place and maintain balance between his children. Around 24500 BBY, the Darksider Zendor, instigator of the First Great Schism, traveled to Mortis and encountered the Ones. Yet he dismissed their perspective on the Force, seeing it as no more valid than the beliefs of other Force traditions. Around the second year of the Clone Wars, the dominant Jedi distress code, inactive for over 2,000 years, was mysteriously reactivated. Captured by Admiral Tennant in the remote Cerealithium system, recognizing the signal's importance, the Jedi High Council dispatched Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker, and Ahsoka Tano to investigate. Their search led them to the Mortis Monolith, a strange structure that drew them into the surreal realm of the Ones. Within Mortis, the three Jedi encountered the Father, who recognized Anakin Skywalker as the Chosen One prophesied to bring balance to the Force. To test Anakin's worthiness, the Father commanded him to subdue both the Son and the Daughter, a trial that Anakin successfully completed, demonstrating his unique command over the Force's dual aspects. Satisfied, the Father acknowledged Anakin as his rightful successor, hoping that he would carry on as the guardian of balance between the light and dark sides. Yet despite the Father's hopes, tragedy soon struck. In the tumultuous events that followed, both the Son and the Daughter met their ends, and the Father himself was mortally wounded. With their deaths, the final echoes of the Celestials' influence faded. Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka returned to the known galaxy, bearing memories of Mortis that seemed to fade with time, leaving behind only the fleeting sense of a destiny not fully realized. Thus the legacy of the Celestials and the Ones, ancient guardians of cosmic balance, came to a quiet, enigmatic end. Their passing left the galaxy without the guiding hand of Mortis, and the force of their legacy would continue to ripple across generations, leaving its mark on those destined to follow.
Abeloth. Many millennia ago, a young woman found her way to the realm of the Ones, taking on the role of a servant, tending to their needs and eventually earning their trust as the mother. She nurtured a bond with the Father and succeeded for a time in tempering the tensions between the Son and Daughter. She even managed to channel the Son's destructive impulses into creativity, persuading him to use the Force lightning to carve new rooms into the gorge walls where they lived. But as she aged, the mother's influence began to wane. The ageless siblings resumed their feuding, and neither she nor the Father could keep peace between them. Driven by desperation, one day she secretly drank from the font of power and bathed in the pool of knowledge, mirroring the actions of the Son and Daughter. The Father pulled her away, but it was too late. Her mortal form was twisted by the dark promises of power, transforming her into Abeloth, the bringer of chaos. In a fit of madness, she attacked the Son and Daughter, forcing them into submission. The Father, however, intervened to protect his children, leading them away from the planet and leaving the newly created Abeloth, now a powerful threat, abandoned and imprisoned in their former home, using the Maw to contain her, while moving to the planet Mortis, where he would continue to keep his children in balance. However, when the natural current of the Force shifted, Abeloth occasionally escaped her prison, unleashing chaos and feeding off the fear and death until the Son and Daughter would return to the Killiks to re-imprison her. This cycle of chaos and confinement repeated for hundreds of thousands of years, each resurgence plunging the galaxy into disorder before order could be restored. In 44 ABY, during Abeloth's return, Grandmaster Luke Skywalker reviewed the Jedi archives, reading his father Anakin's experiences on Mortis. From the Third Hive's knowledge, Luke realized that Anakin's refusal to become the Keeper of Balance had led to a series of escalating galactic conflicts, reaching a peak in recent decades. Jason Solo's fall to the dark side as Darth Caedus had also inadvertently triggered the destruction of Centerpoint Station, releasing Abeloth to sow chaos across the galaxy. After defeating Abeloth, with Darth Krat's help, Luke concluded that, with the ones gone, the Jedi and Sith must now fulfill their role, striving to maintain balance by embracing their respective paths and heeding the Force's will.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Start your youngling reading in 4 weeks with Hooked on Aurebesh. Use Hooked on Aurebesh about 20 minutes a day, a few times a week, and your youngling could be reading a bedtime story to you. This unique 3-step system puts Aurebesh instruction together with 50 great data pads and fun interactive games to give your youngling a head start in reading. Try Hooked on Aurebesh today and see why parents rated it the #1 trusted name in teaching younglings to read.
Welcome aboard the Millennial Falcon. This is Christian.
And this is Jordan.
We are currently lost in space looking for this mythical Mortis planet we can't seem to find on any star charts. But along the way, we picked up a hitchhiker. Welcome aboard.
Hey, how's it going? This is Frankie.
Nice to have you again.
Yep, good to have you back. But before we get into that, guys, you know what we got to do. We got to keep this bucket of bolts flying because we barely get out of the station every time. We're always needing to go ask someone for a boost, and it's just like terrible. So, but we do have enough money to keep this bird in the air for a little while longer. So I just want to thank all of our Patreon supporters. You guys help to keep the show going. We thank you very much. And we also got a couple new ones, boys, Jonathan and Andrew. So clap, clap, clap. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are part of our Jedi Order now. Okay.
So some might consider it a heretical faction. Of Jedi, but those people are wrong.
We brought balance to the Force.
This is the proper interpretations.
In any case,
They're the radicals, actually.
yes. Yeah. Thanks to all our supporting listeners. Remember, guys, we have a nice little catalog of bonus episodes behind the paywall if you wanted to check that out. And I just recently dropped another fan fiction called Shadowfall, Operation Shadowfall. So if you guys want to check that one out, and I'm going to have the sequel to it hopefully pretty soon within the next couple weeks here. And so we just have a growing catalog of bonus episodes. I think they're pretty good. We try and make it worth your while, right? So, but if you want to access that for as little as $3 a month, you can get access to the bonus episodes. We also have a higher tier for $5 a month, and you will get ad-free listening for all the new episodes, and I usually try and get those out early as well, before the actual release date. So you can get early and ad-free episode listening for all the new episodes as well for the $5 tier. So again, thank you everyone who supports the show. We also accept single donations on PayPal. If you wanted to do that, you weren't interested in subscribing, you just want to send us little credits our way.
A one-time tip?
Yeah, not a problem at all. StarLordsPodcast@gmail.com. That'll be the place you send it on PayPal.
We also accept crypto.
Absolutely.
We do not accept galactic credits. They're no good out here.
Unfortunately, yeah, they've been inflated to. I haven't. I can't even fit the price of bread on one data pad of credits. Okay. Anyways. We also have some merch, Redbubble. All the links are in the description for the merch website. You can go there and buy a sticker, pick yourself up a hat, do.
Show your support in real life.
Yeah, just rep Star Lords, my man. Also, rating and review the show. We really appreciate rates and reviews, especially on Apple. For some reason, we're not getting like a ton of rate and reviews on Apple. We have like more than enough, plenty on Spotify, but Apple, for some reason, maybe Apple's just like, its interface doesn't like optimize for the rating of a show to like show up. So please, if you use an Apple device, please rate and review us. If you don't want to give us any money, that's fine, but just give us a rate and review. That is great. Or share the show as well. We love
all your friends.
Yeah, share the show in any groups you're involved in. Also subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And you can follow us on social media. Get in touch: Discord, Instagram, X, Facebook, and email. And I just wanted to remind people again, we are getting a lot of comments on Spotify at this point. I'm unable to respond to those comments. So please, if some of them have actually been like pretty decent comments, and then I can't seem to find them once you click the read. Yeah, once I click the read, I can't seem to find them anymore. And they're pretty good comments that I would actually like to bring on the show, but I can't get them. So please, if you have a comment or correction or anything like that,
feedback.
Yeah, email is always the best. It's probably the best way to do it. Or DM. You can DM us on social media, Facebook, X, or Instagram. That works as well. But, email is good too. If you want to send us your comments or corrections, please try and email us. The comments on Spotify are not ideal. Send us also your Star Wars collections, any of your fan fiction, headcanon, in-universe ads, or corrections or comments on any of the episodes. We also want to give a big thank you to a regular contributor to the show, TJ.
In our Discord, yeah.
Yeah, TJ on Discord. I think his Jurassic Tease is how he goes, so give a shout out to him in Discord. He's given us quite a few ads. In-universe ads.
He seems to know a lot of people run companies and businesses in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe the madman of Star Wars.
He's running a marketing firm.
Yeah. Must work somewhere in Coruscant or something.
Yeah. Exactly. So big shout out to TJ. Keep him coming, my dude. And he provided the one in this episode as well, Hooked on Arabesh. So thank you, sir, for that.
And thank you to Hooked on Arabesh for sponsoring
our show. Thank you for teaching me how to speak basic. With all that being said, let's get into the Celestials.
All right. Well, I guess the big bantha in the room is the concept of ancient godlike civilizations. Definitely not unique to Star Wars. It's actually a pretty common sci-fi trope.
Yeah.
You have the Forerunners and even the precursors in Halo. You have the Xel'Naga of StarCraft. It's just a recurring theme.
There's one in Star Trek too. I can't remember. Also, like, again, any nerds who like Stargate like me, I know there's one.
I was going to say Stargate too. Yeah.
There's the Ancients in Stargate who
Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, Warhammer.
Not just the Necron, not just the Eldar. They have the old ones as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what's interesting about a lot of these ancient, let's call them seeding races, who like seed the rest of the races.
That was my nickname in high school.
Hey, this is a PG show. The interesting thing about them is they're often like almost spirit beings, even like Stargate or in Warhammer too. Like there's like in Stargate, they were like a flesh and blood species, but they ascended and like turned into spiritual beings, so there's kind of this like common trope that they're not just scientific. They're not just matter, they are more than matter.
They're almost mystical.
Which makes it mystical and mythical and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. It like goes beyond science and into like the spiritual. So obviously Star Wars has to have its form of that, which are the Celestials, and by extension the Ones. The Ones aren't all of the Celestials. Obviously, they do seem godlike in their appearance, but there was a whole species, like a whole group of them, and the Ones are just the three that were left for whatever reason to guide the Force or however that magic science works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also another trope that comes with it, is that science that borders on the magical, which we've addressed in other episodes before, as well as the concept of a war in heaven. Typically, these ancient races will have transcended, like you said, and disappeared from the galaxy, or they will have participated in some kind of war, oftentimes with their own creations. So in the case of the Celestials, you have the Rakatan Empire, who's kind of revolting against them. In Halo, there's a bunch of like interfighting between the Forerunners and the species and the Flood, and the precursors. In Warhammer 40k, you have what's called the War in Heaven. So again, this is another extension of that Ancients trope. It's not just the Ancients. It's not just that they leave behind this like legacy of like super ancient technology or structures and things, but also that they seem to have some kind of conflict with their children races, right?
And it's part of the reason why they're not around anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it kind of leads to their disappearance.
Now, even in Star Wars, it is, I don't know if this is just like an infinite regress, but there's even like species like the Qua as well, who almost
have their own.
They almost fit that bill as well. Like they're the super ancient race that help sort of seed in the galaxy and spread civilization across the galaxy, and then they disappear.
And they leave behind Stargates.
Yeah, and they leave behind Stargates. Yeah, and then. But yeah, then the Celestials are even older. You do wonder if it's like...
How many Ancients is too many Ancients?
But at least with this sort of like supernatural, more so explanation, you can leave... You don't have to explain it anymore, right? Because it's beyond explanation.
Yeah,
so.
And in the Quad's case, they just evolve into like... a shadow, and same with the Rakata as well. They're same thing. They leave behind things like the Star Forge and star maps. And
stuff. The Rakata do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's an infinite regression of ancient species.
Yeah.
How many ancient aliens can we go? How many ancient aliens deep are we?
Yeah, exactly. What? So like, okay, what is your guys' opinion on having that story element in the Star Wars universe? Is it unnecessary to add? Is it just people looking for more things, or they're sort of fishing for things to write when they don't really have anything? Is that kind of... Well, what's your thoughts?
I personally, I don't... A question. I'll answer your question with a question. where else? Because the only time I remember seeing them in like any Star Wars material, yeah, was in that one Clone Wars episode. Like, what else is, like, are they in any comic lines? Are they any book series as well? Like, how much of them is there out there?
Yeah, they actually go pretty far back into the lore. More so like little elements of them that were tied together later with the ones. So things they were referred to as the Ancients or the Architects, and things like the Maw Cluster and Centerpoint Station were like old. They come from like novels.
Right.
I don't know when they were published, but probably in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah. Like, were they first introduced during like Shadows of the Empire era, or so like they're like pretty
before that.
Even before that. Wild. Okay, cool.
So
it's
they've
not
been
a
around
new
for
idea
a while.
then.
No,
right,
they've been around for a while, but they were very like, it was very loosely touched on, and then over the years they kind of drew together all these different elements of an ancient precursor civilization and the things they left behind, tied it all together with the ones as like the grand overarching narrative. And then so that kind of answers that question. But so it's not necessarily new to Star Wars, and arguably at the same time of these other media projects and franchises that we mentioned, they were already there at the same time. So it's not like they're riffing on other people's. Obviously, the concept is older than them. Yeah, but it's not like they were. It wasn't like they were a later addition to the media.
Yeah.
And a lot of the like older stories as well read very mythical, and the way they're explained are kind of mythical, and it's almost not unlike, it's almost like they're trying to make like a creation myth for the Star Wars universe, right? Like the Sumerians or the Greeks or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's their version of Zeus.
And I feel like because you asked, you were like, what is like our thoughts on that? I almost wonder if it's almost unavoidable in like some of these, like especially something like the Force, right? Like, is it you're trying to explain the unexplainable, right?
Yeah.
Like, and because it's such a trope in so many different like IPs, like I wonder if it's just something that like it in one sense it kind of feels like lazy writing, but at the same time you're just kind of like, well, how else are we gonna get around this? You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, an ancient race made it all up. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, so I have kind of a theory on that too. You know, I do think it's a little tropey. I don't hate it. I'm not like,
Yeah,
it doesn't.
I just
like,
feel like it's just a given. That's what I'm saying.
my only issue with it, when I read about them, like even in that Clone Wars episode, like it almost doesn't feel like Star Wars. It
like something else.
aesthetically, it feels like you're entering into some sort of different universe, and maybe that's the point. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
To say that there's like even something broader than just like the galaxy far, far away. I don't know, but that's one way to look at it. So I'm sort of ambivalent about it in that sense. But so there's actually like this very natural fascination to go like deep into our past, and that's something that is like for me personally, like I am super fascinated with. Especially like prehistory and like Göbekli Tepe and stuff like that. Like I think that all those things are endlessly fascinating because they're so mysterious, and we really don't know what's going on with these ancient megalithic sites. And I think there's this like human fascination with the ancient, the old,
Totally.
beyond what we know about.
documented,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Because it's just like there's so many questions, you know.
Yeah, and that really is an endearing like human inquisitiveness, because like even ancient peoples saw even more ancient people's stuff and wondered about their things, and they didn't even have things like science and archaeology, so they often created myths and legends to explain those things. There's cool stories of like ancient Greeks seeing like ancient ruins from like Samaria and being like, you know, who did that? That's already old. Like the people are gone. Who
Right.
built those things? And the ancient Greeks are ancient to us, right?
Yeah.
The Romans are closer to us. Like Cleopatra is closer to us than
Construction of the pyramids.
Than the construction
Because
of
I
the
literally
pyramids.
just watched
Yeah,
a video
yeah.
on that
Yeah.
last night. That's so I was like,
so like to
that's
them the pyramids are
wild.
already ancient.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And even so, the ancient Sumerians, there was a culture called we don't know what the culture was actually called.
We will name them in the future, but we don't know what they called themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We name them. So, there was this precursor to the Sumerians and Akkadians and whatnot, and they were called the Ubaid culture. And there's no writings of them. We have some artifacts, and the artifacts are like super fascinating because they found a lot of these like little serpentine. They look like human serpentine figurines almost, and they have like reptilian faces. Ancient aliens.
You going with this?
No.
They still run things today, Jordan. Just
No, but it's just like you can kind of tell that the Sumerians were influenced by this sort of aesthetic, but we don't know how, and we don't know what this.
And did they even know what they were doing, or were they just replicating something they had found?
Yeah, they likely spoke a completely different language than the Sumerians that we know of, right? Because I think Ubaid was around like. They think between like 8,000 and 4,000 BC, you know, and so we're talking like really, really old. But yeah, they were building stuff and they were
Leaving behind.
Yeah,
things,
they had like civilizations and cultures, and they clearly had some kind of influence in the ancient
later-
Mesopotamia, right? And so yeah, there is this like kind of, I don't know, there's just like this deep fascination with our past, and the past that we don't understand, or where the answers are not clear at all. And I wonder if in Star Wars, like something like the Celestials is sort of like scratching that itch a little bit, like you're trying to get into like what preceded all this, what happened before all this happened, you know. And those are interesting questions to explore, right? Because you've built out this really fleshed out universe, and so like but what happens if we go deep into the past, you know? Like
what is their ancient mythology and ancient cultures before look like? You know? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no, that's a really good observation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so kind of to bring it back to the Star Wars stuff, like I said earlier, like the episode I remember the most, introduction of it all, was the one episode in the Clone Wars. And that whole episode, you were saying earlier, we were talking about this off air, how like that whole episode just kind of felt, to me at least, I was like, this thing is like a crazy acid trip almost, right? Like it's like they take on like physical form, but correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember, but is Mortis in a separate realm altogether?
Yeah, it's not really clear. Like time moves differently.
so
when
like,
they come back, It's not even clear how they got there.
Yeah,
like Anakin and Ahsoka.
So are they like physical beings, or like I said, did they just take some some bad blue milk or something, right, and just go on this like crazy trip within the universe? Like,
I think it's meant to reflect that kind of like cross between science and mysticism of like time moves differently in this realm. Did this even really happen? Was it all kind of like a vision? Was it real? Was it And it's intentionally made like that on purpose to be vague.
Yeah.
Because these beings are supposed to be so mythical that you don't want to be like concrete about it.
Yeah.
One thing I did like about it though was I liked it's almost like a personalization of the Force. If you could talk to the Force as beings and seeing kind of like the two
personifies them.
Yeah, personifying them, right? And then I thought that was kind of cool. It's like, if you could talk to the dark side, what would it be saying specifically,
One thing I actually don't like about it is, and this could be like an internal projection, or these beings choose to manifest themselves in a way that you would understand, is often with these ancient creatures or ancient aliens. I hate saying it. That they often they look like us. They look like humans specifically, right? Like of all the species in the galaxy, why would they look like humans? Again, that can be easily explained away. Like again, in Halo's case, like humans are actually part of the ancient aliens that existed before.
I think that's in a lot of IPs. That is the case.
Or humans were fashioned after the image, right? Kind of like shaped in the image of God, right? Mm-hmm. But in this case, like it could also be like an internal projection that the Force appears to you in a way that you would understand. So obviously, if you're a human, it'll appear to you as a human, right? Or the ones would appear to you as humans. Although that's kind of messed up when they later in more Disney canon, they show up as like carvings, and they're very clearly like permanent in stone looking like that, right?
That is interesting.
I'm just making observations. I don't necessarily say I hate it. I don't humans might have a special place with the Force, obviously Anakin being the chosen one. Maybe humans are shaped in the image of the Celestials. I don't know, but it was always kind of one of those things that I kind of keep an eye on, where you can either go like the Lovecraftian route and go with like a species like Abeloth, right? Something that doesn't resemble anything you would even mentally comprehend, or they go the other extreme, which is like, oh yeah, that just looks like a person, right?
Absolutely.
It'd be cool to like include them in like a game level somewhere. In like, have you guys played like the Jedi Survivor games at all?
No, not yet.
No. I haven't.
Really?
No.
Man, they're good. Like, they're actually good. The first two were really good. I haven't played the third one yet, but like, it'd be cool if like, same deal. He goes on like a fever dream acid trip, and you like play in the world and you see them, and it'd be cool. I think it'd actually be cool to like, because like I said, to my, very narrow scope of understanding of them within Star Wars, it was like it's kind of limited to the one episode, and I feel like it's not something that's super brushed on. Or maybe it's better if Disney doesn't touch it any further,
right? And there is an element too of like, why not keep mysteries and legends, right?
Totally.
Like, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. You don't have to climb to the top of Mount Olympus to confirm whether or not Zeus is there. Just let the stories speak for themselves.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, I do feel like that, like. I think it's just like we're a product of like kind of the Enlightenment, and
we need to drill down to the very bottom of everything.
Exactly, everything has to be categorized.
How much does Force weigh, Jordan?
Measured, categorized, and
that goes back to the discussion.
Described.
Like midichlorians, right? That is an extension of that same thing of
That's
trying to
right.
explain the mystical, right? Like, a lot of people would prefer if you just left it alone. Obi-Wan's explanation is all you need. You know how it works in the universe. You kind of have an idea or a feel for what the rules are.
Yeah.
There's this concept of light side and dark side and balance.
Yeah.
And you don't need to go crazy with it. But
I think there should be like sort of the mysterious ways of the Force, right? Like you can't fully understand it, but
and there are elements of that with the Celestials. Like they disappeared mysteriously. We don't know, did they transcend and become one with the Force?
Right.
Did they just go into a different dimension to protect themselves? Were they actually annihilated and cast down? Right. We don't know.
No, 100%.
Make sure you do join us next time, though, where we do drink some past date blue milk and find out if the
old ones
really do exist.
We can't
or
find
not.
this Mortis place. Maybe it's the only way to get there.
Indeed. All right, guys. Before we head out, let's dig into the mailbag. We got a couple here. We'll address. First one. Got an email from a guy named JG. He says, I'm a recent fan of your podcast because you talk about Star Wars Legends lore. I really find it very interesting how you guys mix real world stuff and with the Star Wars lore. thank you. That's what we were doing today. But I was wondering, maybe do an episode where you guys could talk about the scientific principles that are akin to real world stuff. Like how would a real life Starforge work using science or the science behind the technology in Star Wars. So we're going out of the mythical and religious into
the concrete hard sciences of how the Starforge operates.
Exactly. No, I don't know if we'll make that's not a bad idea for an episode.
Yeah, there is a book that I started and I paused reading it because I wanted to start taking ideas and crafting an episode out of it of like the science of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's a really good book. I think it's written by some kind of physicist of some kind.
Okay.
And he goes out and explains like different technological feats and things or elements of how planets work.
Yeah.
The only issue is like we usually speak to what we know for the most part. Like I'm very comfortable with
Speak for yourself, Christian.
Guys, I can barely read. I'm far out of my grasp.
Science is magic and magic is power.
I just make up my own lore.
I make up my own science, Jordan.
Yeah, I just don't have I have a stronger biology background, but I'm not a physicist. And
Sure.
strong maths are not my forte, and I'm not an engineer. So I have to rely on other sources to kind of fill in those areas for me personally.
So
Cool idea, though.
I hear what you're saying. However, I do think we can always like opine and conjecture on like how would this work. So let's take his specific question, the Starforge. Like how would the Starforge work? Well, I would assume it would
Magic, Jordan. Magic.
It would either have to be A, magic, or B, something like we're familiar with, some sort of like AI and robotics automated system. You know, to go get the raw materials that you need, you'd have to go like land on a planet and mine it. And
In this case, just harvest this power of a star.
Yeah, but you'd still probably need raw materials.
Well, so now we're going to show our science hand. Stars do contain a lot of matter that you could use to craft those materials from, right? Like,
okay.
In theory, everything that exists
That is true,
came from a star, right?
Right, that is true.
So if you just harvest everything, all the atoms within the star, and then you can combine those atoms in different ways to create whatever material you needed, right?
Yeah.
Save it for the episode, guys. Save it for the episode.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, no, we're
Yeah,
answering his question.
Yeah, I think it's worth going to do. That'd be sweet. That'd be a super cool one.
Yeah, that would definitely.
Yeah, and that would give you more than enough, right? Like if you harvested all the potential mass of a star,
Absolutely.
you would have more than enough resources to build any infinite fleet.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Yeah. I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
We had one more from Thornbjorn, I think is how you say it. Thorbjorn, I think is how you say it. Scandinavian fellow.
Maybe.
hopefully.
Maybe just like bears.
It could just be his.
He's actually from Latin America, Jordan.
It could just be his X handle too.
Yeah.
Anyways, he says it feels like you're circling this a lot in the Ghosts of Tython episode. So if you go back and I can't remember exactly what episode, but somewhere back in our catalog, the Ghosts of Tython, where we talk about the basically Dawn of the Jedi stuff that happened. And he says, isn't it obvious that Anakin did balance the Force? Before there was 2 Sith and a lot of Jedi, so the Jedi was the unbalance. After the fall, there's Yoda and Sidious, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, so on and so forth. And so I think he's referring to like how in Dawn of the Jedi, like the Jedi are all incorporate the dark and the light side in their practice to maintain balance in the Force, right? And he's probably correct in that. Like, yeah, like in the ancient times, balance was maintained via each individual Force user being like
being able to master both.
Yeah,
aspects.
equally using both the Force, and that's how it's balanced. Whereas in like the more modern Star Wars, it's through polarity. So you have one extreme light side and one extreme dark side, and that's how balance is maintained. And when balance gets too much on one side, then a chosen one comes and brings balance to the Force, right? Like that is one way to look at it. But
yeah, I think the problem is the authors. There's a conflict in the fundamental ideas of the authors.
That's true.
For George Lucas, balance was the light side. The light side is good.
Yes,
you do not need both dark and light. It is only light, and darkness is an aberration, right? Darkness should not exist.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, then yes, only with the extinguishment of the Sith does that bring balance? Now, the authors of Dawn of the Jedi kind of era and some new Star Wars scholars, I guess, would argue that balance means balance and you need equal parts. And this is more of like the Eastern tradition of there needing to be darkness and light and being able to master both. Yeah. Exactly. So I think it's just a fundamentally different outlook from the authors who wrote it.
And
and that's what causes the conflict, right? Like, do you believe George Lucas because George Lucas made the universe? So do you side with him or do you side with these like more gray interpretations, right?
And I do think that you're probably correct in that George Lucas, that was his.
Yeah. Oh, he said it. Like, he's been very clear about
that's it.
Yeah.
Like the light side is the balance that we're talking about. But I think it can, for the audience who doesn't hear him explain it, it can be confusing because you can watch it and think, oh, there's these polarity
light and dark,
so you kind of need to balance. Is that what he means, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That only comes up because you hear George Lucas in an interview. He doesn't necessarily express that view through the movies, at least not clearly, right?
Yeah.
Luke is obviously the good, Luke is the good guy. Darth Vader becomes redeemed, and the Sith are, as far as any movie fans and George Lucas is concerned, the movies end Star Wars, right? So,
interesting stuff to think about there. So. Anything else, boys?
Nope. I think we're good. Let's find this planet.
Yeah, let's find it. The long lost city of Atlantis. I mean, the long lost
planet of Mortis.
Yeah, planet of Mortis. Hey guys, reach out to us on social media. Give a like and follow on YouTube. We love to hear from you. Stay engaged. Talk to us on Discord. Peace.